The Sarasota County Bar Association is a proud partner in bringing you Law in Sarasota. With voluntary membership of over 900 lawyers and judges, the Sarasota County Bar Association is your community's leader in advancing legal professionalism, practice development, and public service. Visit www.sarasotabar.com for more information and to use the online directory list to find an attorney.
This program is brought to you by a grant from the Community Foundation of Sarasota County and the Sarasota County Bar Association. The Education Channel produces the program and broadcasts from its state-of-the-art campus on Beneva Road. They make this program possible. Welcome to Law in Sarasota. One of the goals of this program is to inform the public of legal services that benefit the citizens of Sarasota, Manatee, and DeSoto counties, but that are generally unknown outside of the legal community. We have two public servants here today who, with their staff, spend countless hours helping folks who cannot help themselves. And they need lawyers, and they're desperately in need of a lawyer's help. These two lawyers work for a state agency called the Office of Criminal Conflict and Civil Regional Counsel, but we'll just call them Regional Counsel or ORC. There are 5 regional counsel in the state, and they serve at the pleasure of the governor. They correspond with the 5 district courts of appeal. Our circuit, the 12th Circuit, is in the 2nd District Court of Appeals region, which is 14 counties and include the 6th, 10th, 12th, 13th, and 20th circuits. It's a lot of territory to cover and lots of cases, and as you will see, lots of types of cases. So they have to hire attorneys and staff who are competent in many areas of the law. So first, let me introduce the regional counsel for the 2nd District, Neymotin, and she's here with me today. Welcome, Anita.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. It's a pleasure to be here today.
You must have made several governors happy because you have been the regional counsel for this area since 2007 when they started, right?
I was the assistant regional counsel in 2007. I was the circuit chief for the 20th Circuit. And then I was appointed as the regional counsel in 2011 by Governor Scott.
And you're also the first female one, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. You've been a former prosecutor, you have a master's of law and business, so you know how to run a large organization, and you're currently a candidate for another degree. What is that?
I just finished, my master's in public administration. We're also doing the Lean Sigma series. We did the white belt, yellow belt, green belt, and now we're doing the black belt. It's an advanced management course which is taught by Bob Seymour throughout the country.
And you are a professor at Ave Maria University?
Yes, sir.
And I know you've taught a lot of legal education courses, too many to talk about here. I like to point out some little-known facts about my guest whenever I can. Now, Ida was born in Kazakhstan, the former USSR. She came here to the United States in 1979 with her family. And I can say with a high degree of confidence that she is the only regional counsel that speaks Russian. She's married to a Fort Myers attorney who she met at Ohio State. She's got 2 daughters. Was I accurate on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's talk next to someone who is known to local lawyers here. We have the lawyer who was appointed by Ida as her 12th Circuit chief. It's Mark Brewer. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
He runs the local office. He's the hands-on guy who hires, trains, and supervises the ORC attorneys. He's an experienced trial attorney. He's a talented office administrator, and is respected by his peers for his commitment to fostering a high level of competence, efficiency, and ethics in his ORC lawyers. Mark's a graduate of the Citadel. He's a former 82nd Airborne Army Judge Advocate and Desert Storm vet. That's probably experience that helps him out running his current job. So, Ida, let's start out with some basics. Why do we have regional counsel?
Well, Your Honor, what happened was previous to 2007, the rates of private attorneys who were doing the work was skyrocketing, and it went over 120 million a year. And regional counsel was created under 27.511 as a way to represent indigent clients effectively and in a cost-effective manner. And what we do essentially is when the public defender's office has a conflict in their criminal cases, we take those cases. So for our office, we have 5 public defenders that we work with, and those are the conflict cases we take. We're budgeted for about 5% of their conflicts, and that's pretty much the numbers that we have. We also do a lot of civil cases. We do dependency and a slew of other civil matters such as Baker Acts, Marchman Acts, and on any given day, we have about 8,000 cases. It used to be that we had more criminal cases, but today we have actually more civil cases.
Well, let's talk a moment. Some of our audience may be unfamiliar with what a Baker Act or a Marchman Act is. What's the difference between the two?
So Baker Act and Marchman Act are actually very similar. One is a mental health issue and one is a drug addiction issue. And in either of those cases, the person is hospitalized and evaluated by a physician, and we're called in to represent them. The Marchman Acts we do on a first basis, but the Baker Acts we take after the public defender's conflicts.
Well, these are what we call involuntary hospitalizations. When a person is beginning to act out and threatening himself or others, then a person, it can be law enforcement, it can be a doctor, it could be a next door neighbor for that matter, can petition the court to have this person involuntarily taken to a hospital facility to be evaluated. And that's true for the folks that are using drugs, that are out of control with that, and also for the mentally ill folks who are really dangerous to themselves or others. So it's one way, because we're depriving a citizen of his or her liberty, it's important they have counsel, and that's one of the rules that you have. Let me ask Mark, so what are the types of cases typically that the public defender conflicts out, and why?
Usually it's because there's co-defendants. A and B robbed the Zippy Mart, public defender represents A, we represent B. And that way the clients don't feel like, why is one assistant public defender trying to get a better deal or flip the one? Sometimes it's because their public defender is already representing the victim or a witness. And as such, to make sure that the defendant knows the lawyer is working for them and them only, they'll conflict out of the case, so it comes to us.
Okay, and so I guess sometimes it's cases where the charged defendant also knows somebody that potentially is a state witness that could, or maybe even defense witness that needs representation, and you've got to represent those folks.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about the budgetary situation you've got. Now, my impression is that your offices don't get a lot of money from the legislature to meet all your clients' needs. The one skill you have to have as regional counsel is the ability to do more with less. How do you do that?
Well, Your Honor, it helps that I have a business degree and now a public administration degree. You know, when I was first appointed in 2011, the office was in great disarray. And so we essentially had to build everything up from scratch. We revamped the death penalty division, and we created accountability through different procedures to make sure that every dollar we spend was used effectively to represent our clients.
Well, I know that you have all the time developing plans to make effective use of the budget that you have. You apparently have come across a concept, and maybe you're the one promoting it. It's called Cross-Jurisdictional Death Penalty Program. Tell me about how that came about and what it does, or what your plan is to use that for.
Yes, sir. This came about, it was my master's thesis at Florida Gulf Coast University, and I had to evaluate a public agency to see if they were doing what they were supposed to do. So I picked my own agency. I figured.
That was scary.
Yes, sir. And that's what my professor said. Be careful, you may not like the results. But I picked the death penalty division because I wanted to see if we were doing everything that we should. What I found after doing some public records requests from the Justice Administrative Commission is we handled those cases for a fraction of the amount of money that the private registry do.
Well, let's explain how that works. Okay, in a typical death penalty case, who gets to represent these people that are facing the death penalty?
So when they're indigent, let's say there are 3 co-defendants. So the first co-defendant, the public defender will take traditionally. The second one will take, and the third one will go to private registry. To be death penalty certified, there are special things that the Florida Bar sets out that you have to meet. So very few lawyers are actually death penalty certified. When the regional counsel gets a case in the death penalty division, we look at where the case is. So for instance, if the case is in Bartow, we look at who in the Bartow office is able to be second chair qualified. And so we'll put that person on as second chair, but for first chair, we have about 8 attorneys who are qualified. And so the first chair is assigned to the second chair attorney, and that way they work together. There's less travel costs, essentially. We have qualified 8 attorneys through this death, actually I believe 10, through our death penalty division. Byron Heilman is our homicide chief. He has been doing death penalty for about 42 years,
Yes, ma'am.
42 or 44 years. And he is a trooper, and Chris Bolt is our managing attorney. And so by working with them and trying the cases, we've developed a way to qualify our own death penalty attorneys, because if you hire them on the registry, they can cost anywhere from $100,000 to $120,000 a year. So when we qualify them in-house, we take a criminal attorney who has qualifications to be second chair and is interested in doing this type of work, and we bring them up gradually to meet those qualifications. And I actually am one of the people who was qualified under this program. I came in as second chair qualified, and under Byron Heilman, I became first chair qualified in 2013. So I looked at the attorney labor costs that JAC was paying to private registry.
Now, the JAC is the state agency that will approve the bills that are sent in by private lawyers. Have nothing to do with yours, because your budget is set by the legislature. But the private attorneys who do the capital work have to have their bills approved by the Judicial Administration Commission. It's an organization up in Tampa, and they fly spec every little bill. And you're right, capital representation is probably the most expensive of all the jobs that we have in the state criminal justice system.
Yes, sir. And they do a good job. They do a good job of looking at all the expenses, but ultimately, a private attorney goes to the sitting judge and says, this is how many hours I've billed, this is the reimbursement that I need. So once it reaches, I believe, 100 hours, it's reimbursed at $100 an hour. And when we compared death penalty cases of similar circumstances, similar media coverage, comparable amounts of victims, we found that regional counsel handles them from anywhere to 1/3 to 1/10 of the price.
Goodness.
And we proposed a death penalty cross-jurisdictional program to say that we can take cases in other areas before the private registry and handle them at a fraction of the cost. We have a lot of support for this program. The legislature was very excited. The Senate funded us. Unfortunately, due to the situation today with the coronavirus and everything else that's going on, it was not able to go through this year, so we're shelving it until the next session.
Well, I guess we should say we're taping this show at the end of the legislative session, which is just in a couple of days, and everything was moving pretty smoothly towards funding this until a priority such as the COVID-19 situation arose. So that knocked a lot of people out of the money box. when it came to programs like that. So how does the cross-jurisdictional aspect of it work?
So what I was proposing was to start in the Orlando-Ocala area, excuse me, because Brad King had 22 death penalty cases. He had some cases from Miss Aramis Ayala that were reassigned to him, and so that area made the most sense.
That's a case you're referring to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Aramis Ayala is the state attorney.
Okay.
And so
Oh, that's right. She's the one in Orlando
Yes, sir.
declined to prosecute capital cases. Now
Yes,
know
sir, I
her, yeah.
apologize, I didn't make that clear. And so that was the reason we looked at that area. The colleges stepped in and said, we'll give you a break in the rent if you take our students to intern on the cases. The Florida Bar came in and said, we'll help you put together a curriculum for these students so that by the time they become lawyers, they're more versed in the professionalism aspect. And so it became really a community outreach program. Because with a lot of partners involved, it not only saves taxpayer dollars, but the education aspect is increased because you have young future lawyers and young future criminology majors learning about these cases and helping us with them.
Well, the Florida Supreme Court has given you a lot to do with their decision recently to require unanimous verdicts reversing themselves, places a whole different set of complexities into representation of people facing the death penalty. So tell me about the education that you have to get to be certified in death penalty cases.
So in the 70s, what happened was any attorney could try a death penalty case. And unfortunately, a lot of times they had attorneys who were practicing in tax law represent people on death row, and to no one's surprise, they realized that that was not a good result.
A lot of reversals
Yes, sir, a lot of
for
reversals.
incompetency of counsel.
Yes, I mean, a lawyer is versed in what he or she knows, but when you put them in an area from tax to death penalty, there's a lot of lag there. So now there are very specific requirements. You have to be practicing for 5 years. You have to be an attorney in this state. You have to have special education, death penalty seminars. There are a number of, for second chair qualified, I believe it's 3 murder cases or serious felonies. For first chair qualified, in addition to that, you also have to go through 2 penalty phases. And what that means is in Florida, the death penalty is bifurcated. So you have the first phase, which is John Doe guilty or innocent? And the second phase, which is kind of a second trial, is John Doe going to receive life or death? And so for that, you have to go through 2 of the second penalty phases. So we had some attorneys who were very talented attorneys, and they would get the result of not guilty. And so we were thrilled because that's saving a person's life. However, it did not count for the penalty phase because they never got to the penalty phase. So it takes quite a while to get through that. And those are the certifications.
And frankly, there's not a lot of members of the private criminal defense bar that wants to do these cases. So I know there's a real demand when we get one of those in our circuit, and you have to have a private attorney. It's really frustrating for the chief judges because the person who may be called upon to represent could be in Orlando, not close to Sarasota or Miami or Jacksonville, and it makes it very cumbersome for the cases to be tried. I suppose as the regional counsel, you get involved with legislative priorities. What are your priorities, or were they this year?
So I asked for raises for our attorneys.
Why would you do that?
Well, you know, our people work really hard, and last year we did receive raises, but only for the people who were in FTE. We had some people who were in FTE is like a permanent position where they receive benefits. The people
Full-time employee, is that what it is?
Yes,
or something
sir.
close to that?
Yes, sir, exactly. The people who were in OPS, which is other personnel services, they were not eligible for raises. So we converted them to FTE status, and now they are. And I don't know how that's going to go. I'm very hopeful.
Okay.
I think our people deserve raises.
Well, I think you, comparison to other lawyers on the state payroll, you haven't been treated with parity as far as I can see. But let me ask, I'll ask Mark, how does your office stay current? How do you keep the attorneys who are practicing in a wide variety of areas of law current? Let's just talk about the different areas of law. We talked about some of them, Baker Act and Marchman Acts. What else? What other types of cases do you do?
Our agency is the first agency appointed in all dependency cases. So if children are removed from parents, the parents, if they're indigent, are assigned attorneys, and usually it's us. Sadly, there's a lot of one-parent families, and so we're the people
You get a lot of those.
Yes, sir. We're lucky in a way because any of these seminars you go to, because the Florida Supreme Court requires so many hours of legal education, but we're lucky because Ms. Neymotin sponsors several legal seminars throughout the year to include ethics credits, and as such, our attorneys are able to go there for free. We also open it up to anybody in the local area. Lee County Bar, Sarasota County Bar, prosecutors, defense lawyers. Mr. Brodsky was very good at our last seminar.
The state attorney.
Yes, sir, and having a lot of his assistants come to the seminar that Ms. Neymotin put on.
How did that come about, the one that you put on locally?
Really, it was cooperation. Judge Williams, who was the chief judge at the time, saw the need for it. Ms. Neymotin had the speakers and the staff come in, everything from legislative updates through the Tyler Court. And
Explain Tyler.
Tyler Court is a unique court here in this area that is based, Turn Your Life Around, TYLA, and it's for women who are arrested for prostitution cases. The state is very good about working with them.
Sex trafficking victims too,
yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah.
That's prostitution was seen for 1,000 years as being a vice crime, but now it's seen as being victims of human trafficking. And as such, those who want to get out of the lifestyle, are being offered this program. And in doing so, then a lot of the criminal charges are going away, and they're being able to be licensed and move on with their lives.
One of the things that I noticed on the list of responsibilities that Regional Council has is representing people who have been found to have contracted tuberculosis. Have you had any of those cases?
Oddly enough, yes, sir. There's still time. Back in the 100 years ago, if tuberculosis infected a city, they would burn down part of that city out of public necessity. Tuberculosis today is maybe 1 or 2 cases a year, and those people have to go to a special hospital where they are treated so that once they become non-infectious, then they can be released, but they're still monitored to make sure they're taking their medication.
And your office is appointed to be their lawyer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mark, can you think of any cases where, any ones that you can give us examples of where your office has done something very special for the client that the people should hear about?
Well, in the dependency cases, getting the reunification of the family. 2 years ago, there was a front page of the Herald Tribune on Christmas where a mom was reunited with her kids. And she had worked 6 months going to different classes to prove that she was not addicted to drugs, to prove that she would be a good mom, and she got to have her 3 kids home for Christmas. And when you see that on the front page of the paper, of course, we weren't mentioned, but that's okay. She did the work, she earned the benefit, and we were happy for her.
Well, I can't let this pass without mentioning the Early Childhood Court. How does your office interact with that, Mark?
That's an amazing court. It's something that's a program, Manatee in Sarasota County. It involves parents who have children under 5 that are removed by DCF. However, instead of having monthly interactions with their counselors, they have more frequent interaction. They have a monthly interaction with the judge. And as such, they have their children returned to them faster. It requires more work, but the children are reunited sooner. And so Baby Court, or ECC, Early Childhood Court, has really been a good program.
We have learned so much about the developing brain, 0 to 3, the first 1,000 days of life for a child, and how profoundly they can be affected negatively by the traumatic experiences they have in that very short period of time. And having your attorneys available to work with those and change the trajectory of those children is really changing the whole way we're doing business with the dependency court, breaking the chain of abuse and neglect of these kids, hopefully generationally. So thank you for doing that.
And Your Honor, if I can just add, the legislature gave us some additional positions in dependency. So I'm very thankful for that, because dependency is very important because they grow up and they have their own kids. And I also want to mention the seminar that Mark was talking about. Senator Gruters was our...
Joe Gruters, yeah, our
Yes,
local
sir.
senator.
Yes, sir. So he took time out of his day, in addition to Ed Brodsky and Judge Williams, to attend. And one of our other seminars that we did in Fort Myers, Governor DeSantis actually really wanted to come, and unfortunately at the last minute he couldn't, and so his office called to apologize. But it was very nice because, you know, it's important for attorneys to get the education that they need, and we try to do it for a fraction of the price.
Well, we're certainly all as taxpayers glad to hear that. Well, I see we've run out of time here. I hope our viewers have some insight into the challenges that ORC attorneys face every day and the vital services that they provide. These lawyers could be making more money in private practice, but they have dedicated themselves to the mission of representing people who are the most distraught, vulnerable, and legally exposed members of our community. By their service, they help level the playing field so that the economically disadvantaged have access to justice and the full benefit of due process. They bring balance to the criminal justice system and legal system. We owe them a debt of gratitude. This is Lee Haworth signing off for Law in Sarasota. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
For more than 36 years, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County has worked one-on-one with estate planning attorneys and their clients to make a lasting impact through philanthropy. Stable, trusted, and knowledgeable, the Community Foundation safeguards the charitable legacies of donors to ensure that they continue for years to come. Visit www.cfsarasota.org or call 955-3000 for more information.